After a grueling 9 hours battling relentless rain to install a new roof and stop the leaks that threatened to ruin her carefully curated aesthetic, I finally stepped inside. Drenched and shivering, my wife, eyes glued to her phone, barely acknowledged my presence. "You stink. Go shower before you touch anything I paid for," she remarked coldly. Her words stung, but what she said next, loud enough for her sister to hear, cut even deeper. "Sometimes, I wish he'd just fall off that roof and save me the trouble." Seething with anger, I showered in silence. Just last week, she called me 37 times. I never imagined I'd be writing here, but I need to unload this burden anonymously. My wife, Sophia, who's 29, and I, at 31, have been married for 5 years, together for 7. In hindsight, they were red flags waving vigorously that I foolishly ignored, blinded by love as I was. Last Tuesday brought torrential rain of near-biblical proportions. Our roof, which had been leaking for weeks, became the focus of Sophia's disdain. She lamented that the water stains were wreaking havoc on her aesthetic, turning our home into something unworthy of her social media highlights. The persistent dripping was a constant reminder that the perfection she craved for her followers was crumbling. Sophia had been incessantly urging me to repair it, claiming there was no way she could host her oh-so-important home tour series with the ceiling in disarray. Ignoring a forecast that promised relentless rain, I dedicated my entire day off to battling the elements, wrestling with that roof for 9 exhausting hours. I knew if I postponed once more, her dissatisfaction would echo endlessly. The fierce wind lashed around me, and within moments, I was drenched to the bone. But I pressed on because when your home needs repairing, you just do it. That's a lesson I inherited from my dad. Mend what's broken, protect your own. By the time I finished, my body was trembling uncontrollably, and to ascend the ladder felt like an impossible task. My fingers were like ice, wrinkled and numb, and I was sure I'd forgotten what warmth felt like sometime around our 6. All I craved was a steaming shower, maybe a word of gratitude, a bowl of soup, anything to show that my wife cared about my borderline hypothermia while fixing her treasured decor. As I trudged into the house, leaving a trail of water behind, I tried my best to keep to the tiled entryway. Sophia was lounging on the luxurious $1,500 couch we're still paying off, engrossed in her phone. Her sister, Willow, was visiting, and they were both indulging in wine, sharing laughter over some joke. Neither of them acknowledged my arrival. Eventually, Sophia glanced up at me, but rather than any inquiry about my well-being or if the roof had been taken care of, her face twisted into a look of sheer disgust. She scrunched her nose and said she could smell me from the other side of the room. With a sharp look, she ordered me to take a shower before I touched anything she'd bought, and then she let the words slip that have been replaying in my head ever since. Looking at Willow, she raised her voice just enough for me to catch every word. Sometimes, she wished I'd fall off a roof to spare everyone the trouble. Willow laughed, as if my wife's morbid wish was just a charming little jest. I stood there, feeling the rain mix with what I suspected were tears on my face. Sophia, unfazed, returned to scrolling on her phone. I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, yet I found myself shuffling silently to the shower instead. Underneath the steaming water, I lingered for a full 20 minutes, searching desperately for any feeling other than the dull emptiness inside. That night, as I lay beside her in bed while she was engrossed in her social media feed, her back turned to me, my mind drifted to our finances. It hit me. I couldn't recall the last time Sophia helped with the mortgage. With her as an influencer, her earnings mostly vanish into clothes, makeup, and quirky subscription boxes that stacked up, unopened, around the house. The following morning, while she was at her Pilates class, I did something I'd never done before. I took a deep dive into our finances the other day and made a gut-wrenching discovery. She secretly opened 3 credit cards in my name. On top of that, she's been quietly siphoning money from our joint account into her personal stash, little sums of $200 here, $300 there. I always believed that money was being saved for our future together. I reached out to my buddy Carter for a reality check, desperately needing someone to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. We met up at this little dive bar, the kind of place with dim lights and where nobody's obsessed with taking selfies. There, I laid everything out, the roof repairs, her offhand comment about wanting me to fall, and the money issues. Carter sat there, drinking his beer slowly, absorbing every word. Then he posed a question that nearly knocked the wind out of me. What advice would you give me if I shared this story with you? His words hit hard. I'd tell him to get out. I'd say that if a friend of mine were in this situation, it would be clear that his partner doesn't respect or love him, instead treating him like a walking ATM with handyman skills. Later that night, Sophia casually asked me to put up some shelves in her office, claiming she needed them for some project. It was like a punch to the gut, given everything that had just unfolded. Securing that Instagram partnership had been a huge milestone for her. But when I brought up the issue of the credit cards, her reaction was explosive. Tears welled up as she accused me of trying to control her and failing to support her career. She compared me unfavorably to her friends' husbands, who supposedly never questioned their wives' expenses. The atmosphere at home became unbearably tense over the following days. I started sleeping in the guest room and began scrutinizing everything more closely. That's when I discovered the truth. The emergency money she claimed to have borrowed for her mom's medical bills was actually spent on a weekend getaway with Willow, which she had flaunted on social media. Shockingly, she never even mentioned it to me. I also found out that our supposedly leaking roof wasn't as urgent a repair as she'd insisted. She had exaggerated the issue to justify redecorating the ceiling with the trendy new pattern she had seen online. Yesterday, I took a significant step and met with a divorce attorney. I didn't tell Sophia where I was going, just casually mentioned I was meeting Aaron. The lawyer laid everything out for me how to document each detail, safeguard my remaining assets, and prepare for what lay ahead. Sitting there, orchestrating the end of my marriage, felt surreal. But strangely, it was also a moment where I felt like I could finally breathe again. Last night, my friend Carter gave me a hand with moving some essential items to his place, important documents and other valuables. The family heirloom and the basic go bag suggested by the lawyer sit ready. This morning, I left for work as usual, but that was the last normal thing about the day. He never came home. I turned off my phone and spent the day lost in thought. I drove aimlessly, sat in parks, and tried to unravel the tangled mess my life has become, wondering how I got here without ever seeing it coming. When I finally switched my phone back on around midnight, there were 37 missed calls from Sophia. She wasn't calling out of concern. She needed me to fix the dishwasher, which had flooded. I didn't bother to call back. Now, I'm on Carter's couch, trying to figure out my next move. Part of me wants to vanish entirely, leave everything behind, but a more rational voice reminds me to heed the lawyer's advice. I need to document everything, protect my finances, and ensure I don't get completely taken advantage of during the divorce. The incident with the roof was the breaking point, but it was merely a symptom of deeper issues. I've spent years building a life with someone who sees me only as a wallet on legs and a handy man at her beck and call. It's time to put myself first and plan my next steps carefully. Imagine caring so little that I'd matter less than fixing a leaky roof. I'm done being the stepping stone, the butt of her jokes with Willow. No longer will I stand by and watch my hard-earned savings vanish in her endless quest for validation from strangers online. It might get messy, but for the first time in years, I'm standing up for myself. Yes, there's a storm brewing, but after spending 9 hours under pouring rain repairing a roof, I feel ready to face whatever comes my way. I'll keep you posted as things unfold. Thanks for sticking with me if you've read this far. Update 1. First off, a huge thank you for all the support on my last post. Your comments reassured me that I'm not crazy for feeling the way I do. Sorry for the delay in updates. The past few weeks have been a whirlwind. I ended up crashing at Carter's place after it all went down. The incident with the roof was just the tip of the iceberg. Sophia bombarded my phone with no less than 37 calls, yet not a single voicemail was about my well-being. Every message was a rant about the dishwasher flooding, insisting that I needed to man up and rush home to fix it. By the second day at Carter's, I woke up to a barrage of 60 for notifications, texts, calls, DMs from every platform she and I were connected on. Her tone had shifted slightly. It wasn't genuine concern for me, but rather anxiety over appearances. Apparently, her followers were starting to ask questions, especially after she shared that she had to call a plumber and spend $300 of our funds. Meanwhile, I was strictly following my lawyer's advice. The first task at hand was to take control of my finances. I opened a new account at a different bank and redirected my paychecks there. Then, I began the daunting task of going through our credit card statements from the past 2 years. What I discovered was gut-wrenching. Remember those 3 credit cards I mentioned? Well, it turns out there were actually 5, carrying a hefty total of over $24,000 in debt. Most of the charges were for indulgences like online shopping sprees, spa treatments, and mysterious weekend business trips I never knew about. There were also several large transfers to someone cryptically listed in the payment history as simply D. When I brought all this to my lawyer, she just nodded as if she'd seen it all before. She helped me file fraud reports for the 2 cards I genuinely had no idea existed and began crafting a meticulous paper trail, paving the way for my divorce proceedings. By the 4th day, Sophia's text messages grew increasingly frantic. She had even reached out to my mother, who was already in the loop. My mom was never too fond of Sophia anyway. Sophia had even shown up at my workplace, searching for me. In a desperate move, she filed a missing person report, which the police quickly closed once I assured them I was fine. I just needed some space from my marriage, and that's when things really took a turn. Carter and I were casually enjoying dinner when his phone buzzed with a text from Willow. Apparently, Sophia had been spreading rumors that I was on the brink of a mental breakdown. She claimed I'd been behaving erratically for months and even expressed concern about my supposedly dangerous antics. Meanwhile, Carter unveiled the truth to Willow, presenting her with screenshots of my credit card statements, fraud reports, bank transfers, and 37 voicemails from Sophia obsessing over the dishwasher, yet none about my well-being. The next morning, I received a direct call from Willow. Her voice carried a hint of hesitation and embarrassment, a far cry from her usual tone. She began by offering an apology for previously laughing at Sophia's roof comment and then unleashed a revelation that left me reeling. Sophia had been secretly communicating with her ex, Damien, for months, far more than casual exchanges. During a girls' night, Willow had caught glimpses of messages that no married woman should be receiving. When confronted, Sophia brushed it off, calling it harmless flirting that served to boost her online engagement numbers. My suspicions grew, and I asked Willow about the mysterious D in Sophia's payment apps. The silence before her response was more telling than words could ever be. I spent a week in radio silence, meticulously gathering evidence and preparing for the storm ahead. Finally, with everything in place, I knew it was time to return home and face the reality I'd been avoiding. It wasn't about patching things up. It was about creating a new reality based on my lawyer's plan. My presence in the house was a legal necessity. I had to inventory our possessions, and truth be told, I was weary of imposing on Carter, despite his endless patience and kindness. Returning to my home felt surreal, as if I were stepping onto a film set that once depicted my life. There was Sophia on the couch, absorbed in her phone, as usual. But the moment I entered, she sprang up like she'd been struck by lightning. The drama that unfolded could have snagged her an Oscar, if only it didn't scream of insincerity. First came the tears and the arms thrown wide for an embrace which I deftly avoided. Then, the questions came at me like bullets. Where had I been? Why hadn't I called? Did I have any idea how worried she'd been? Her gaze of the concerned wife quickly unraveled when she saw I wasn't indulging her act. Her demeanor shifted, and she began listing all the sacrifices she claimed to have made for me. I'm still trying to recall exactly what those might have been. She claimed she had always supported my dreams, though in reality, this just meant she hadn't actively tried to ruin my career. In an attempt to guilt-trip me, she even brought up the dishwasher flood, accusing it of destroying her favorite shoes. I calmly placed my bag on the floor, looked her squarely in the eye, and revealed that I knew about the credit cards, about Damien, and about the money transfer. Her face ran through a dozen emotions in mere seconds before landing on a defensive anger. What followed was a whirlwind of accusations, gaslighting, and a wildly imaginative rewriting of our relationship's history. Sophia painted me as controlling, suppressive of her creativity, envious of her success, and unsupportive of her dreams. It was essentially the greatest hits of projection. When I didn't take the bait, she switched tactics, attempting to seduce me. That the old rules no longer applied. Reality hit her like a cold wave. No more playing the damsel in distress to get me to fix things while she racked up debt behind my back. That night in the guest room, I felt a strange mix of peace and determination, knowing change was finally in motion. As the morning light streamed in, I laid down the new guidelines with an uncheckable resolve. We would now lead separate lives, merely sharing space until the divorce was settled. No more were the days when I would be the sole fixer of all things broken, both in our house and in our relationship. For the first time ever, she would have to pitch in for household expenses. I had already taken steps to freeze all our joint accounts, ensuring she couldn't dig a deeper hole. She had exactly 30 days to justify every unknown credit card expense, or I file fraud reports without a second thought. She must have assumed I was making empty threats. The very next day, she tested my resolve when the garbage disposal jammed. With a sugary tone I knew all too well, she sauntered into my office to ask for my help. Remaining calm, I simply handed her the contact info of a local handyman and returned to my work as if nothing had happened. The shock on her face was almost satisfying. For perhaps the first time, she realized that she could no longer rely on the old tricks to manipulate me. It marked the beginning of a new chapter, one where I took back control and set boundaries that refused to bend. At first, I convinced myself gravity wasn't real, but then came the true test of my patience. Just 3 days after I got back home, a massive thunderstorm rolled in, and guess what started leaking? The roof, the very same roof I had devoted 9 grueling hours to fixing in the rain. Soon after, I discovered that, while I was away, Sophia had hired someone to check my handiwork. Somehow, they managed to make things worse. Perhaps it's because she went bargain hunting on a task app, finding the cheapest labor she could. Now, water dripped relentlessly onto her prized vanity setup, where she recorded her beloved makeup tutorials. In a state of panic, Sophia came rushing to me, her face a mask of urgency, and actually grabbed my arm, trying to drag me toward the ladder propped up in the garage. Calmly, I loosened her grip and suggested she try standing on a chair with a bucket, just as she'd expected me to do whenever anything in the house went awry for months. With that, I shrugged on my jacket, off to seek wisdom from Knox, my old mentor, about launching my own contracting business. Sophia didn't take it well. Her psychological tactics ramped up, even attempting to turn our friends against me. But her efforts fell flat when I casually revealed the credit card statements. She attempted to use Willow as a go-between, but that plan fell apart when Willow sided with me. In desperation, she phoned my mother in tears, but Mom simply told her that she had always seen through her charade. Her last resort was posting vague, sympathy-seeking updates online, hinting at personal struggles and claiming she's discovering who her true friends are. Her followers were quick to respond with heart emojis and messages of encouragement. However, those who truly knew us both stayed notably silent. This morning marked 2 weeks since my return home. As I made my way to the kitchen, I found Sophia seated at the table, looking truly defeated for the first time in our entire history. Her phone was nowhere in sight. Instead, she slid a folder in my direction, bank statements showing she had paid off to credit cards using her personal savings. Though this gesture barely scratched the surface of her debt, It was her first real admission of wrongdoing. Then, she asked if we could discuss the possibility of starting over. I almost couldn't suppress a chuckle. Instead of confronting her immediately, I calmly told her that I had already found an apartment and would be moving out next week. Then, I showed her the shocking discovery had made the night before, messages between her and Dame Myrn arranging a weekend getaway, timed perfectly for the days I was mysteriously absent. That weekend never came to be because she was too preoccupied with the chaos that erupted after I vanished. For the past 3 hours, she's been frantically trying to reach Willow, who keeps updating me with the most entertaining bits of their conversations. It turns out that Sophia never imagined she'd face any repercussions for her actions. My new home awaits me, with the lease kicking in on Monday. Carter has generously offered to help me with the move, and I'm grateful for his support. The divorce papers are ready, sitting in a neat stack, just waiting to be filed. It's a harsh lesson that sometimes mending a roof isn't enough if the entire foundation is crumbling. In the latest update, it's been 3 months since I last shared my story. The journey has been intense, but I'm finding new strength with each passing day. Honestly, I wasn't planning on sharing another update, but something unexpected happened today. I woke up to a peculiar notification. Sophia had tagged me in a throwback photo from our honeymoon. It was the first time in weeks that my phone buzzed with her name. It's strange how such a tiny thing can still send your stomach into a freefall, even when you think you've moved on. I felt it was time to give you all the closure you deserve after sticking with me through this roller coaster. So grab a strong drink. This story is a journey worth taking. Moving into my new apartment was oddly uneventful. It was just another typical Tuesday. My friend Carter came over to help me lug the essentials: me bed, TV, clothes, and tools. The place is cozy, just a 1-bedroom, but the rent is reasonable. Most importantly, there's peace here. No one calling my name. When I first moved out, it felt like I was shedding a heavy weight. On that initial night, entrenched among the remains of a half-assembled IKEA couch, I indulged in a slice of pizza and felt a sensation that had evaded me for years. True peace. No more tiptoeing around criticisms about the slightest mess or enduring passive-aggressive sighs whenever I wanted to watch a game. It was liberating. But naturally, Sophia wasn't ready to let go without a struggle. She began her efforts with a barrage of affectionate messages, desperately trying to reel me back in. She poured her heart out about how much she missed me, how empty the house felt without my presence, and how she'd been deeply engrossed in perfecting her translations. Inspired by a few therapy videos she'd stumbled upon online. When the sweet words fell short, she shifted tactics, aiming for guilt. She bombarded me with pictures of leaky pipes that I wasn't around to repair, and screenshots of astronomical plumber estimates she claimed were draining her finances. Add to that a series of melancholic selfies accompanied by captions that painted her as the perfect picture of a woman healing from betrayal crafted to garner sympathy from her followers. And boy, did they eat it up. In the midst of everything, Damien made a surprising return. Remember him? He was the enigmatic D from Sophia's payment notifications. It seems that once he got wind of Sophia potentially being singling prematurely assumed she'd have a windfall from our divorce, his interest in rekindling their past connection soared. Willow, my ever-watchful companion, caught them sharing a meal at a cafe near what once was our home. When I confronted Sophia about it, she nonchalantly claimed they were just exploring new business ventures. Right, because who doesn't discuss business with a little under-the-table footsie? Willow's observation, not mine. About a month into the divorce proceedings, things started to get serious. I must admit, seeing the astonishment on Sophia's face when she found out had meticulously documented everything was almost worth the $24,000 credit card bill she left in her wake. Her lawyer was a recent law school graduate, who amusingly kept addressing me as Sir, despite him likely being just a handful of years younger than I am. Emotional voicemail practically begging for my help. I couldn't help but feel a mix of frustration and vindication. Here was a woman who had questioned everything I did, belittled my efforts, and tried to undermine my work. Now in a position where she needed the skills she once dismissed, our once seemingly picture-perfect household had become a battleground of strained civility and competing narratives. There I was, watching her lawyer visibly squirm as my own calmly revealed a parade of undeniable truths. Sophia had spoken of her non-financial contributions to our household, and while there was some truth in her growing presence online, her betrayal was starkly highlighted by those damning credit card bills. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched the drama unfold, remembering the roof that had started it all. The repair job I painstakingly did had been sabotaged by the unskilled tradesmen she had hired, leading to water damage that now crept insidiously through our walls. Her pleas for help rang in my ears long after that 15th phone call, each one a reminder of how far we'd fallen from the life we'd once shared. It was tumultuous and heartbreaking, but undeniably revealing. This chapter of our lives was a testament to how fragile and multifaceted partnerships could be when faced with the stark reality of truth and deception. I received a voicemail that was filled with genuine sobs, pleading with me to come take a look at the situation. Instead of responding myself, I sent someone reliable, Knox, who's semi-retired now, but still the most skilled roofer I know, assessed the issue. He estimated the repair would cost around $7,000, much higher than the $1,000 she had anticipated. In an amusing twist, she even tried flirting to get a discount with Knox, my 62-year-old mentor, who has been blissfully married for 35 years to a woman who could easily outmatch both of us in strength. Financial reality began to hit Sophia quite hard around the 6th week. Without me subsidizing her lifestyle, taking care of all the home repairs, and paying the mortgage while she spent her earnings on clothes and makeup, she suddenly found herself in over her head. Her career also took a downturn. It turns out that authentic stories of divorce don't sell face creams as effectively as those picture-perfect, aspirational couple posts. Who would have guessed? In an attempt to manage costs, she tried moving her new partner Damien in, but that experiment blew up rapidly. It only lasted 9 days. Apparently, Damien was expecting the pre-divorce version of Sophia, the one who seemed to have an endless flow of money. Sophia once lived for lavish dinners and spontaneous weekend getaways. But now, the real Sophia had emerged, one who anxiously checked her bank balance before daring to order takeout. Her allure had faded in the harsh light of reality. 2 months into the process, we sat down for what would be our final settlement meeting. Sophia arrived with quite a different look. Gone was the heavy makeup. Her attire was understated, and her roots had grown into a stark contrast against her usually flawless blonde hair. For a fleeting moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, though many years ago before the digital embellishments and superficial glamour took over. It was a vulnerable moment that almost made me second-guess everything. Almost. The settlement terms were clear and uncompromising. We agreed to sell the house, and the debts were to be divided fairly. Sophia would take responsibility for the credit card debt she'd amassed, and we'd split whatever remained from the house sale after the mortgage settled. Given the current housing market and the significant water damage, the leftover sum would be meager. In a final, desperate bid, she tried to play the card of emotional distress. It was a last-ditch attempt to sway the outcome, but by then, the reality was undeniably concrete. For less than it was worth, just to get it over with. The words felt heavy, like they were soaked in resignation. We sat there in silence for a moment, the air thick with unspoken words and memories. It's strange how someone who used to feel like home can now feel like a stranger. I could see the weight of the past few months etched on her face, in the slump of her shoulders. She used to light up a room, but now she seemed like a faded photograph of herself. I tried to find the right words, something comforting, maybe even hopeful, but my mouth was as dry as the Sahara. So, instead, we talked about the weather, the rising cost of groceries, and how Carter's dog had learned a new trick. We circled around the real conversation like it was some sleeping giant best left undisturbed. Before we parted ways, she gave me a small, bittersweet smile. "Take care," she said, and I knew she meant more than those simple words. As I watched her walk away, I realized that life isn't about clean breaks. It's messy and complicated, full of moments that feel both ordinary and profound. Sometimes, you just have to take a deep breath and keep moving forward, even when the way ahead is unclear. The repairs turned out to be more extensive than we had anticipated, falling short of our initial hopes. She managed to find an affordable studio apartment, a place she could call her own. To make ends meet, she picked up a part-time retail job to supplement her dwindling income from social media. When we talked, she said something that caught me off guard. It was an apology. Not of the manipulative kind I'd feared, but a heartfelt recognition of the way she had wronged me. She admitted to treating me poorly, having taken me for granted while prioritizing her online facade over being a decent person in real life. I didn't have much to say in response, just a nod and a simple wish for her future. As we were about to leave, she asked if I had seen any of her recent posts. I hadn't paid attention after filing for divorce. I blocked her on all platforms. She opened her profile and shared her latest video titled, "What I Learned from My Divorce, Taking Accountability." The video had garnered more views than anything she'd uploaded in the past few months. As I walked back to my car, a strange feeling enveloped me. It wasn't a sense of triumph or smugness, but more like a release, as if I had finally sat down a heavy weight I'd carried for so long. I forgot it was even there. Yesterday, I wrapped up a small roofing repair for a single mom living nearby. It wasn't anything extravagant, just fixing some shingles that had been battered by the recent storm. When I was done, she insisted on making me lunch. It was a humble meal, a sandwich with chips bit. We shared it in her cozy kitchen as her little one eagerly showed me his Minecraft creations. She didn't take any photos of the repaired roof to post online. It didn't matter how it would look for her followers. She gave me a warm smile, thanked me sincerely, and paid me fairly for my labor. As I packed up my tools, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Willow, reaching out to let me know something important. Sophia had finally come clean to our parents about everything: the credit cards, Damien, the whole lot. She'd moved into her studio apartment and was genuinely trying to sort her life out for once. Willow's text ended with another heartfelt apology, admitting her part in everything and saying that I deserved more than what I had been through. I snapped my toolbox shut and gazed up at the roof I'd just repaired. It stood solid, without leaks, built for durability, a kind of roof that doesn't rely on filters, followers, or constant vigilance to do its job. Sometimes you need to tear things down to rebuild them. What looks like destruction can actually be the first step towards something better. I won't say I'm grateful for what happened, that those were 5 years I can never reclaim. But now I'm constructing something new, something built to withstand whatever storms may come.